is a certified relationship coach, a speaker, workshop facilitator, online advisor, and a contributor to the award-winning movie documentary Looking for Love. We are in conversation with the amazing Nigel Beckles. Welcome, Nigel. Welcome.
Good morning, Annz. How are you?
Greetings, Nigel. I'm doing fine, Nigel. I'm doing fine. Going to check in with you. What's your check-in number and a word?
Oh, dear. Well, today I would say probably about a 7 and a word. Stuffy, because hay fever is kicking me. Kicking me hard.
I'm going to say I'm at an 8, and my word is just thankful. I'm thankful. That's my word, Nigel. Thankful to be here. So are you ready, Nigel? Are you ready for our conversation
Yeah,
today?
as ready as I'll ever be. Along with my hay fever.
Yeah.
Yep, go for it.
Go for it. And people are just looking forward to this. So, yes, each and everyone out there, just another reminder. So we're going to start off with the relationship escalator. What's trending? Exploring modern relationships. Because some say there's been a significant shift occurring in modern relationships and life goals, marked by people are removing themselves from what some say is age-based timelines. We're going to have some conversations around the whole what that looks like of the relationship escalator. So Nigel, I'm coming to start by just asking you with regards to modern relationships. Now, someone listening right now and they're thinking, what are they talking about off the relationship, the modern relationships? What are they thinking? Because some people are like, when I shared the headline off the relationship escalator, what do you mean off the relationship escalator? So let's start there.
Well,
what are we talking about today? What does that mean to someone who doesn't know?
Well, if some of the listeners are confused, I don't blame them, because I was a bit confused myself when I first heard the term of the relationship escalator. But the reality is, marriage is no longer considered the gold standard for relationships. It's not like back in the day when, if you weren't married, there was a stigma attached to it. Well, if you had a partner and you weren't married, there was a stigma attached to it. That's no longer the case, because when you look at the marriage statistics, you can look at it and say, well, okay, after World War II, say between 1940 and 1960, it was required. It was like, if you were with someone, the goal was meet someone special, get married, have 2.5 children, or how many children you decide to have. And that was kind of like the way it was done. But then you move on to the 70s and the divorce rates began to go up a great deal. And then from the 80s, the actual marriage rates began to decline. I'm talking about the United Kingdom here. Because obviously you can look at different countries, but as we're here in the United Kingdom, let's talk about where we are.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, as I said before, marriage is no longer the gold standard. People have different expectations, and obviously there isn't that societal stigma attached to not being married. You can live with somebody as a partner, and you don't have to be married. It depends what suits the couple at the end of the day.
It does. And to ask you then, what do you personally think about people who move away from traditional relationship milestones? So people are saying they're moving away from the traditional relationship milestones. So any thoughts about that?
I think that's healthy. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. It depends what suits you. Because when you kind of look back at it and you look at previous generations, they were almost pressured into being married. And at the end of the day, being married is a legal contract, which sometimes has very little or nothing to do with love anyway. When you look at history and dowries, and if a man wanted to marry a particular woman, he had to provide a certain amount of financial benefit to her family or provide land. So it was transactional. There was a transactional part to it. I think it's very healthy. Do what suits you as a couple. because you're going to run into a problem if one person really wants to get married and the other person is ambivalent or is not really that fussed about being married. Then that's going to cause a problem. So once they're both on the same page, whatever construct they want to create for their relationship, that's good for them.
That really ties in with what one of the comments, I don't believe relationships have to follow a fixed path to be meaningful.
I totally agree.
People I spoke to across the age range, some of them are very much for the milestones, so to speak. Some people are, and some people are not. And that's why it's healthy to have these conversations. Another comment, I value the connection over milestones. Connecting with someone, and that kind of links to what you were saying with regards to people getting married, because we see a lot of people who are not happy in marriages. I've seen a lot of healthy marriages, but then we know there's another side.
Well, indeed.
Any
Hence
thoughts?
the divorce rates at around about 50%. So I believe what you said earlier about the other listeners saying that they believe more in connection. That's absolutely correct, because what's the point of being married to someone who you've got a poor connection with? That doesn't make sense.
And any thoughts out there dating and this whole tradition and people stepping away from the traditional and this whole modern relationships? So more comments, I will just share these. All right, I'm open to building relationships that fit the people in them, not a predefined script. Another connection, it's all about connection.
Well, I agree with that too. That it's just, for me, it's just, I say common sense, but what's the point of being in a marriage for the sake of being married to please your parents or society, but you're not actually happy in the marriage? So we could raise the example of arranged marriages, and in some of those instances, the female hasn't even been able to get to know the man. So it's almost going into a marriage with a stranger. But this is what her parents and her family have decided that she should do. I don't believe in that. I think that's very wrong. This is where words are very important, because, the term arranged marriage, you could interpret that as being a forced marriage. Because at the end of the day, you don't know the ins and outs. You don't know necessarily how that, and it's obviously usually the woman who is arranged, for want of a better phrase. And then you also have the aspect of women being seen as property. Because you have to remember, back in the day here, it was very difficult for a woman to get divorced. It was very difficult for women to be employed. In fact, it was even difficult for a woman to have their own bank account. So when you look at those aspects, you have to say to yourself, okay, well, obviously over the last 50 years, things have changed. And for me, it changed for the better, because I consider women were suppressed, say back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s to an extent.
And the messages are coming through in agreement with what's been said. So with regards to this shift, Nigel, it's obvious that, you agree with what's happening for women. Women have more choices. So what do you think holds relationships together now without those traditional markers in place, without the whole traditional?
Well, the only traditional part of this conversation is the marriage part, really, because when you think about it, whether a couple are married or they're not, for a healthy relationship to be created and maintained, it's still going to require the same aspects. And one of the first aspects would be good communication. If you don't have good communication, even with friendships, if you don't have a good communication with a friend, the friendship's not probably going to last that long. Same holds for couples or intimate relationships.
Nigel, I looked online, just looking around with regards to this topic area, and dating without timelines. They're saying that more women are no longer focused on the traditional dating timelines and milestones, and that kind of connects to what we're saying here. And the whole dating landscape has shifted. And they're saying that where before this whole people used to long-term chatting, getting to know one another, some are saying the speed of that now, it's a lot different in modern times. So there's a speed attached to it, whereas before people took more time to get to know. Any thoughts about that?
It's speeded up. Well, yes, it's speeded up, but that's largely due to the internet. Because remember, back in the day, before the advent of social media, if you wanted to, you met a woman, you'd say, okay, would you like to go on a date? So you would go on a date physically. So you have to go physically to the date. And you have to go to a physical venue to the date, right? Now, you can be sitting down, you can be, talking to someone online, DMing and chatting away. So you may have a good feel for someone or a good idea of someone before you actually meet them physically. So yes, definitely. And then obviously you've got the whole dating apps, dating online, and even some people use Facebook and Instagram as kind of like for predators, like a hunting ground, because obviously they can, just drop in someone's inbox. And then obviously there's the whole other part of men usually sending inappropriate photos to women they've never even met. So it's a whole different ball game now in terms of dating.
Yes, and the DM becomes really active. You hear women talking about this. Sometimes they share posts online with regards to what some of the Facebook friends have sent them and things like that. So there's a lot happening. I saw this really interesting story, and this gentleman that's what he calls himself online. And I just thought the question that this younger man put to him was interesting. According to the younger man, he's not living the traditional life at all. He's in his late 20s, and he says, if the normal life milestones are off the table for me, what else is there? And I thought that was an impact question. What else is there? He said, if he came to you, what would you say to him?
Well, normal life milestones sounds a little bit ambiguous to me. You need to contextualize what he's talking about. If he's talking about relationships as we are at the moment, then again, what the traditional milestone to me, if you're taking steps towards marriage, is while you date, you get engaged, then you get married. Those are the traditional steps. Now,
I'll elaborate before you continue. He's saying just not really coupling off, buying properties, prioritizing careers, making money, all those things that he thought he wanted to do. He no longer wants to do those things. So just elaborating on that.
Well, at the end of the day,
your thoughts.
Whether you're going to go through those, well, a lot of people will go through those milestones, whether they're in a relationship or not. So your milestones of you grow up, you leave school, you leave college or university, right? Then you get a job, then you buy property, and then you get married or not, as the case may be. And life trundles on. It depends what someone is looking at and what they're seeing as traditional milestones. Because there's traditional milestones within marriage, and then there are also just life milestones. That's why people celebrate when they get to 40 and 50 and 60. Those are milestones, but those are life milestones, which have nothing to do with relationships.
Yeah, the relationships is separate. So he's not someone who's going to be in a relationship with a woman, building and marriage. And from what he has said, children are not on the agenda, on the menu. And they're looking at, on this page, they're looking at abandoning what they call a one-size-fits-all approach to life, where individuals are finding satisfaction in building their own ideas of what a milestone is. I understand what you're saying with regards to age. Everyone's going to be getting older and older, so that's something that's set. They're talking about like marriages and valuing, even buying property, valuing careers, things like that. They were in conversation about.
Well, again, milestones are all, but it's individual preference.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, because not everyone wants to buy property, for example, which is fine. You know, it depends on what someone's life goals are. So what I have noticed is that many of the friends I know who are married, they come from households where their parents were married. So because that's what they grew up observing, that's the model that they want for themselves. So they go on, they grow up, they get married. Someone from a single parent household may not hold that same view as strongly.
Also, this conversation they were having, Nigel, the gentleman was saying that he thinks that relationships that he's seen anyway, bad for your health. And people saying that they're focusing on their emotional health and well-being, and they felt that being single was the best way for them.
Well, that is a valid point of view. In fact, it's a very valid point of view, because being in a bad relationship will destroy your health, not only mentally and emotionally, but possibly also physically as well. Being in a bad relationship is stressful. Trust me, been there, done that. It's stress. So I totally agree. You're better off, you're better off being single and happy than being in a relationship that's making you miserable.
Wise words there, because people are listening and absorbing the conversation, and that is interesting. Nigel. So there are so many areas on the show that we discuss, we look at, and relationships is definitely one. So for the grown person, I like to say grown person dating out there, modern dating out there, what does that look like? Because people are saying they're struggling with this whole modern dating. Do they adapt to it? People are asking that question.
Wow.
Modern dating, it seems more intentional, Nigel, but they're saying it's also more complicated.
Well, it's as complicated as you decide to make it at the end, because really, when you look at it, okay, all right then, let's set up a scenario. So you're a young lady, and someone you've never met, never interacted with online drops in your DMs and says, "Oh, do you fancy going out sometime?" How do you respond? Now, you could, or the young lady could, she could say, "Oh, she may respond positively, she may respond negatively, she may ignore it altogether." So you may have more, as a woman, you may have more messages coming into your inbox, but it's how you decide to respond or not respond, as the case may be.
How you decide to respond or not respond. Nigel, this is interesting, and we are going to continue after the break, and we're going to also include defining cheating. Modern relationships continue. Nigel Beckles will be talking more with Nigel after the break, each and every one. We will be back. Welcome each and everyone. Welcome. UK Black Men Talk Show. We are live on the Inspirational Community Radio Station. We are in conversation with Nigel Beckles, and Nigel's going to continue what he was saying before the break, and then we're going to go on to the topic of defining cheating and modern boundaries. Welcome, Nigel.
Hello. You'll have to remind me, what was I saying before the break?
You give an example of, in modern times, so if a man went into a lady's DM and is asking her out.
Oh, right,
and
yeah.
just her response, you were sharing with regards to that.
Oh, okay. So there's options.
To conclude?
Well, there's options. It's options, isn't it? It's like the lady has a choice: respond or not respond. Really, I mean, because once you start engaging, you don't know where that's going to go. And on top of that, of course, it depends on the relationship status of the lady receiving the DMs. Because if she's single, well, the options still apply. But if she's in a relationship, she shouldn't be responding really. Because again, that's a breach of trust.
Another area comes up with so much happening on social media. One of our special listeners put forth that with regards to people approaching them online, it just seems like they're on this conveyor belt of women. It doesn't feel special. Any thoughts around that? Just feels like the men are, I like to say, firing their shots. And some women have said, well, they don't really feel like the man is really interested in them. He's just habitually just firing his shots.
Well, those particular men are not necessarily looking for a long-term committed relationship. Effectively for those type of guys, it's a numbers game. You send off. It's like, say you're in a club, right? So back in the day, you'd be in a club or a wine bar, whatever. So there's 5 women there. So over the course of the evening, you approach 5 women. Out of the 5, one might say, okay, or provide her phone number. Different ball game now. Social media. So, a guy could sit there one evening, he could send out 20 DMs, 30 DMs. Okay, it's numbers game. Because out of those 20 or 30, he may get a response from 1 or 2 that he can pursue.
That's telling it like it is.
Well, so the women you're describing to me, they have a very valid point. And some of these guys, I'm quite sure that they've probably got a copy paste couple of sentences. No, I'm being serious. I'm laughing, but I'm being serious. So yeah, they may well have like a template, just copy paste and drop it in, several DMs during the course of an evening. If they get someone to bite, to coin a phrase, then off you go, and then you go down that rabbit hole, which is probably not going to end in a very good place.
Yeah, the online. That's reminding me of a really cool song by Volcano Liveman called Online Love. So Nigel, we are looking also at defining cheating and modern boundaries. Defining cheating because people see cheating differently to one another out here. So has that definition of what cheating is, your definition of cheating, would you say that because of the modern dating arena, would you say that's changed over time? Just yourself, people out there, that's one of the questions with regards to cheating.
Would I say it's changed? I would say yes. Again, because of social media.
Say some more.
Well, because of social media. Because again, there's something called micro-cheating. So micro-cheating involves no physical contact, no getting jiggy, none of that. But it does involve maybe flirting with somebody. Right, say you're in a relationship. So online you're flirting with someone else, or you could be flirting with them in the real world for that matter. But in terms of online, like flirting with someone online, or hiding conversations you're having with someone, or even, and the precursor to that would be if you're in a relationship, but your online status says you are single. Because if you're in a relationship but you're saying you're single, it could imply that you're still open to offers. Let's put it like that. So you've got micro cheating, which is that. Then obviously you've got, obvious physical cheating. But yeah, so there are different types of cheating. And it doesn't necessarily have to be physical. It could be emotional as well.
Yeah.
Because if you're confiding in someone on an intimate level with someone else while you're in a relationship, that could be considered as cheating by some.
Yes. I'm thinking right now, Nigel, on my first page on Facebook, I'm going to share this briefly. Remember, there was a lovely lady on there, and I just remember seeing her post. There was, when I just joined Facebook, I just saw this post, and she was outing this man for being married, and she was really furious and everything else. And she was just such a nice lady. So I just remember receiving a message from her, and she was just like, if you're Facebook friends with this man, and she was just saying some things. And when she saw that I had this show, it's UK Black Men Talk, and she would come on the page sometimes and say some things, but then afterwards about men that was negative. And then afterwards she messaged me sometime later and said, okay, I know not all men are the same. But she was very, very angry because apparently a man on Facebook was talking to her, more than one man actually, and they were married. And he said he forgot to mention, it didn't come up in conversation, that he was married with about 3-4 children. Mm-hmm. And that's what she was furious about, because she actually liked him and she thought that he was a genuine person, someone that she could date. Mm-hmm. And that's what she was angry about. I remember that was the first time I came across her on Facebook, her posts, where she was angry at this gentleman.
So my question is, did she ever meet this gentleman?
I don't believe she did. I believe that they were interacting and they were going to, and somebody messaged her and informed her, something like that. But she didn't know him. It was all online. And she found out he was in real life, that he was married. But yeah, we don't know. Over to you. Over to you, Nigel.
Sounds like she was venting. But yeah, but it goes back to what I said before. I mean, again, he obviously, if this man's got a full size life going on, married, children, etc., but he is entertaining another woman. But again, it goes back to the numbers game, as I said before. And the numbers, for guys who are so inclined, the numbers game now is very, very easy to play. Very, very easy. You know, and then you also have to look at the fact that when you're looking at romance scams, in terms of online dating, a lot of the victims of romance scams have never met the person. All of the interaction has happened online, and then eventually it comes out, you know, after they've parted with some money, usually, it comes out to be a scam. So yeah, so people can get sucked into those situations if they're like emotionally vulnerable. Say for example, they've just broken up with someone, or they're feeling lonely, they get drawn into those situations, and then, you know, they lose their money.
Yeah, we hear about that all the time. Having this conversation with Nigel Beckles, and it's an interesting conversation. We're receiving messages. So Nigel, people are saying they're enjoying the segment, enjoying the conversation. Now, the message is coming through for both areas. I want to say, special listener, thanks so much for your message. So the message goes like this: too much people want to get married to appease others or to follow suit for society. Real sad state of affairs when love isn't the driving factor. That's powerful. Thanks, special listener, for that comment. Really appreciate it. Nigel, how are you feeling right now?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm okay. That are kicking in, so my nose isn't so stuffy. So yeah, I'm good.
You are good. So it seems like people, grown-up dating, people are entering relationships later with more awareness, but also some say with fixed habits. How does one encapsulate your thoughts there? If someone, Nigel, they've been in a long relationship and that's not worked out, they're out here grown and dating.
You have to define fixed habits, because fixed habits could mean anything, and fixed habits could be good or they may not be so good. If you're going to talk about fixed expectations, well, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, they're talking about traditionally there are certain things that they do. They didn't elaborate, but they're just talking about their habits on how they see dating. They feel like the modern scene is very different. So if they'd like to share more about that, what the habits look like. Yeah.
That sounds more like expectations to me, which is nothing wrong with having expectations. In fact, it's very good to have expectations because expectations equals boundaries. So yeah, you should have expectations. But again, it depends who you meet and who you interact with. Because obviously one person may have certain expectations and another person may have completely different set of priorities. So you could like, all right then, so say someone's been in a long-term relationship and that fails. And then they're out there dating. They may still have the expectation to go into another long-term relationship. But they may meet someone who just wants to have a bit of fun. So then you've got a conflict of interest.
Yeah, you definitely do. I'm glad this is all coming up because, Nigel, at 12:30, we're inviting everyone to just call in and share, because we receive messages after the conversation, and I thought that would be fitting to have people call in and we can continue to just absorb everything, absorb the conversation. So I want to ask this question here. Do you think that with regards to men and women and the whole friends, okay, do you think that women that you know value friendship with a man? The women that you know can be just friends, can be friends with a man without it being anything physical, just great friendships. Is that the norm? It's the norm for you, but some men have shared being friends with a woman, that's fine, and receiving messages that are ambiguous, meaning does this woman want me to approach her in that way, and then receiving pictures from the woman. So sometimes in these friendships, one side or the other is behaving in a way that the other side is saying, this is confusing. If we're friends, what are you sending me this picture of yourself like that, revealing to me?
Well, confusing perhaps for the recipient, but obviously not confusing for the person who sent it, because obviously they sent that particular photo or image with an intention, and the intention was to elicit a response.
Me and that person are cool, we're fine, and then suddenly she sends you a picture that's really revealing to you. How do you respond? Yeah, she's attractive, yeah, but suddenly you receive this picture of her.
Well, if it's an established friendship, then you get that type of picture. I suppose for me, because I'm quite jovial, I would probably respond in a jovial way and say, "What, did you have too much? Did you have too much to drink last night? What's that all about?"
Oh, right. Yeah.
And also that depends on, and that would also depend on what my relationship status was, because yes. a lot of relationships actually start off as friendships. So that's another thing you have to consider.
True.
So it would depend really on my relationship status, but also her relationship status. Because say, for example, I'm single, but she's not, but she's sending me inappropriate pictures. Well, that's a whole different ball game now, isn't it?
Whole different ball game, because it's happening out there. A gentleman who has services, he's saying that the women are sending him DMs of themselves, really revealing behind the scenes, saying they're getting sent loads of pictures by women that are really revealing, and if they approach the woman, is that what the woman wants them to do, approach them?
Yeah, well, that's earlier in the conversation that women send revealing pictures as well. I mean, a friend.
Oh, you receive them as well?
What, me personally?
Yeah.
Oh no, I can't think of any occasion, but I have a friend who received, let's say, very scantily dressed woman.
Right.
And
yes.
And I said to him, and he was showing me the pictures, and I said, you know what, this is not appropriate. She wants to, I don't need to see it. She wants to send it to you, that's up to her. But obviously she was trying to entice him into some type of interaction or relationship, you know. So yeah, so women send those type of pictures as well. But but this is the era of the internet. This is the era of social media, and there aren't really that many rules. a bit like
many rules.
Yeah, a bit like the Wild West.
There's so many questions, and I know we're coming to a close. One of the last questions was, it feels like the definition of cheating has become more blurred. I was going to ask you about men who are married and can they be friends with, but then we are running out of time, and I want to say a big thanks to Nigel Beckles and everyone listening right now. So Nigel, before you say adios to each and every one, Nigel is online, author nigelbeckles.com, on YouTube's at author Nigel Beckles. You can find Nigel's amazing articles online, author nigelbeckles.com. Nigel is on Facebook, IG, TikTok. Nigel is out there. He's Googleable, is one of the words that he used before. I think a lady referred to you as Googleable. She is Googleable. Nigel, say goodbye to everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Because we're going to continue.
Well, goodbye. Have a great week. What's left of it? I'll check out number 8. I'm a bit stimulated by the conversation, so thanks for that.
Yeah. And what's the word?
Content.
Content. Thanks so much, Nigel. And our listeners are enjoying the conversation, interacting, and that's what we like. So they look forward to a part 2. Thanks so much for joining me today.
See you later.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Okay, thanks, Nigel. Brilliant. Nigel Beckles there.